Top of the morning, grade 12. Today we are starting with the grade 12 sequence in series as a topic, and we are now going to just work through some exercises. We are given an expression. If I go up there, we have not an expression, we actually have a sequence, and the sequence looks as follows. Just allow me quickly to go up a little bit. Oh, it's 7, 2, -3, and -8. So we can see within the sequence, we have a constant difference. Going from this term until the second term, it's a -5 and then a subtract a 5 each time. So we can talk about this as the variable D. So we can say that there, and I would like you to make annotations and stuff like that as we follow through. So there we can see, but now the question here reads as determine the nth term. And when we are determining the nth term, what kind of sequence are we busy with? We're busy with an arithmetic progression or arithmetic pattern, and we know that this is characterized by a first constant difference. So our formula for this one is going to be Tn is equals to A plus bracket N minus 1 bracket D. All right, now I'm going to do some writing of my keys. My A in this case is 7. My D is -5, and what else is missing? The question actually reads as I need to determine Tn. So that is everything that I need for this formula. I'm going to do substitutions. I'm going to do 7 plus bracket N minus 1 bracket -5. And now I'm going to do simple arithmetic. So that's going to be 7 plus, I'm going to leave that in a bracket for now, so just showing this distribution that I'm going to take -5. I want you guys, especially those of you who didn't join us for this morning session, to take down these notes, and then I'm going to bring that, so that becomes -5 in negative times a negative equals to a positive, so that becomes +5, and then I can just say that my final answer is going to be 12 minus 5n, and if you wrote down -5n plus 12, that's also right. You can get a total of 3 marks in that question, I would say, for the answer, for substitution and using the right formula, and just for simplification. So your 3 marks is supposed to be there. If you didn't get that, it's a little bit early in the year, so don't worry too much. But if you did it right and you were able to follow with me, please just give me a thumbs up in the comment section down below. As we continue on now to the next one, they ask us at the next question number B, the sum of the first 20 terms. So they're still talking about this sequence here. But now, and listen to me carefully, Bob watching there at home, if we are determining the sum of an arithmetic progression, we have different kinds of sum formulas. We actually have 2 sum formulas for arithmetic progression. The one is, Mr. Null, I would like you to pay attention, in bracket 2a plus bracket N minus 1D. Now let's show the viewers at home, grade 12, how well we actually know our work, because we also know the other one, or Sn is equals to N over 2. That is how well this grade 12 group knows their work. If you also knew that formula, well done. Also write your name in the comments down below. And that means you are ahead of the track, because we technically still have a week or 2 where we can finish up this work. So I need to make a choice here. Mathematics, we have to make a lot of choices. We need to choose between being early sometimes and sleeping late. But we now back at this choice. Which one would I choose for this one? Any suggestions, grade 12s? The first one. Why not the second one? Because we don't know what the last term is. You can go work out the last term, but that will be extra work, and extra work means extra time. So this is probably just going to be 3 marks, and I'm not going to waste any more time. So I'm just going to do substitution. The n here, I need to determine 20 terms. So the n in this case is 20. I already have all of my other variables, which is 20 divided by 2. Now I saw a lot of you were punching in what is 5 plus 2 and stuff like that. I would like to ask you to be a little less in grade 12. You are mathematics students, so I'll little less dependent on your calculator. Then that's going to be n minus 1 is 20 minus 1 is 19. So I'm just going to do 19 and bracket negative 5 plus. Thank you. So there we have 2, but in the bracket I have 20 minus 1, which equals to 19, and then what is 19 times 5? Excellent. Thank you, Kazimla, for being so sharp today. Kazimla says the answer is 95. No? Right, so 2 times 7, great stuff, Iletu. It's 14 minus, that's going to be negative 95, and then the difference between that, you see without the calculator, is going to be 10 times 14 minus 95. Great stuff. So that's going to be 10 times 81. But that's negative. So if I multiply with 10, so my answer is going to be, just get a 0 there. So it's negative 810. So if you got that right, good job. You have 3 marks there. Your 3 marks will be here, here, and also for that substitution, your second mark, and your third mark also simplifying. You also could have typed this into your calculator. Let me just show you how you can type this into the calculator. All right, so I'm going to start here. You just need to show that step, this step of substitution. So you can actually get the step of, the first step goes for the formula and correct substitution, and then for the answer. But because we're starting with this, it will be 3 marks, but later on it's going to be 2 marks. So, but it's 2 marks that we need to score. This becomes now level 2 type of questions. What is level 2 type of questions? Routine procedure. So you should be doing this so constant that you almost do it in your sleep. So let me just show you how to type it into your calculator. Let's start there. That's going to be the fraction, and that's going to be 20 divided by 2, open a bracket. If I open a bracket, what comes within the bracket? That's 2 multiplied by bracket 7. I want you to also practice typing this because these are still small numbers, but later on the numbers can become big. Plus bracket, once again, 20 minus 1, 20 minus 1, and then multiplied with, you see there, bracket negative 5. I'm not shy to use my brackets. I do a double bracket at the end, and then I close there, and then I get my answer, which is 810. Now this is actually where you check your answers on a calculator. So I want you to do it without the calculator and also check your answers on a calculator. Can we move on to the next one? Given the number 2, given the following sequence, 6, 3, 1.5, 3 over 4. If we look at this progression, we can see what is happening here. Every time I'm multiplying with a half, or I can say divide by 2. But I would say I'm multiplying by a half. That makes a little bit more sense. So each time I'm multiplying by a half, so I know I've already identified this is a geometric pattern. Do you see the notes that I'm making? This is my thinking process. So I don't expect to get to an answer if I'm not thinking. So I have my thinking process here, and then I'm just going to say, this is a geometric progression. So technically it's supposed to look something like Tn. What is the formula again? A times r to the power of n minus 1. So I need to end off with something like that. But what is the A? A stands for first term in it. You see here, Miss Malchas, I write it down because it's easy to forget or easy to miscalculate sometimes. And then my r is a half. You can go work it out as well. But we already established that it's a half. To see, Onika, I still write it down. Small things make a big difference at the end of the day. Now I'm going to write down my formula. Tn is equals to AR to the power of n minus 1. I do substitution. A is equals to 6 multiplied with R, which is equals to half. I'm going to put it in a bracket, and then I'm going to just leave it as n minus 1. You didn't have to work further there because they only ask you for a general term, so that is sufficient there. You can actually not work further because you're not supposed to multiply that 6 times a half. So you leave it like that. No, that will probably be 2 marks. So it's basically just for the formula and correct substitution into your formula. So marks will be allocated as to formula and correct substitution into the formula. There's 2 marks available there. No, please don't be honest. Don't be dishonest and give yourself full marks here. But now they ask you for the sum of the first 10 terms, and we know that the sum. This is a very intelligent class sitting with me today. So we know that the sum formula looks like, anyone assistance? Sn is equals to a bracket r minus 1. We're supposed to determine s of 10. So that means our n is equals to 10. Then we're going to do substitution. So that means s of 10 is equals to a is 6. You see, we can sometimes forget that. And then I'm going to put this in a bracket, double bracket there. So that's going to be half to the power of 10 minus 1 over half minus 1. Now this is a little bit tricky numbers, so I'm not going to make myself a fool on YouTube here on social platforms. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm not going to do that in my head now. So I'm going to show you how to type this into your calculator. 6 bracket, no, 6, and then I can do the multiplication sign. It's not necessary. 6 bracket again, 1 over 2, close the bracket, close the bracket, to the power, I raise it to the power there, not 2, but it should be to the power of 10, and then I take that, press there, and then I press minus 1, close the bracket. Very important to close the brackets, otherwise you might get wrong answers, or it might say error because you didn't type it, parenthesis that's missing. And then I'm going to say 1 over 2, I hope you are following with me, guys and girls, minus 1, like that. And then I get that answer, and I would encourage you, please write that answer in that form. Don't go and, because you might use that answer in a next question. So that's 3069 over 256. Right, so let's just check the value of that. It's an estimate of L 11,98. Okay, but leave it in this form, in fraction form. Most of your calculators can do that, so you leave it in that form. Now, if we can go to the sum to infinity, which we just looked at in our notes, once again, very intelligent class. Hey, mark. How many marks did I allocate here? 3 for that one. So I'm going to mark from the bottom upwards. So that's going to be, marks is going to be for the answer, then for the formula and correct substitution of values into that. So that's going to be 3 marks there. As we go on to question number C, the sum to infinity. Sum to infinity of this one looks like that, where it's going to be A over 1 minus R. I'm going to do the substitution in the next line. So that's going to be 6, 1 minus half. Now this one is easy because this one I can do in my head. No? So I'm going to say 6 divided by half. And what if I have 6 and I divide it by in half, my answer is going to be 12. Great stuff. That's 2 marks. 1, 2. 2 marks there. Okay. Are we good? Mr. Lowe, you doing good? Okay. Determine N. Careful now. You need to understand this question. This is actually a tricky question. When I was working out the memo, almost caught me there. Determine N if... What is that symbol again? It looks like a Z or what? Sigma. Okay. Sigma if it starts by, they don't say where it starts. No, they don't say where it ends, but they say it starts at 1. So I'm just going to rewrite that for myself here to the side so that you can see it a little bit better. I hope you can see and follow with me. So I'm going to say this, you will normally get it looking like this. So I'm going to say N, and then K is underneath, where K is equals to 1. And what we have here is 2 times half to the power of K, and that answer is equals to 63 over 32. When we have sigma, there is a certain procedure that we follow. In this case, we don't need to do step number 1 because we don't know the top. But what would we normally say when we have sigma? Let's just do that to the side. To determine N, number, what is N again? Number of terms. To determine N, we would say it's top minus bottom plus 1. Let me just see if I have that for this to the side. So in this case, is going to be N is equals to, what is the top? It's N minus bottom minus 1 plus 1. Are you fine with that? So that 2 ones actually cancel out. So then I can say N is just equals to N. So if I can work out N, I have N. So that is the first step when I encounter sigma. Can you tell me what is the second step? What is the second step? Substitute K for the first 3 terms. So if we substitute K, and we're going to work out term number 1, term number 1 is going to be 2 times of to the power of 1, which equals to 1. Let's determine term number 2. Term number 2 is equals to 2 times of to the power of 2. Now, if you need a calculator for that, you can do that on a calculator, but you can see that the answer is a half. Then the next one is going to be, term number 3 is going to be, if you can see the pattern here, it's actually going to be 1 over 4. So that means we are dealing with that's absolutely correct, quadratic pattern. No, we're dealing with a geometric pattern. I'm just checking who's awake and who's asleep. Geometric pattern, and geometric pattern which has a constant ratio of a half. But now they tell me this geometric pattern, a certain number of terms, because that's what sigma means, is equals to 63 over 32. And now I'm going to do the substitution. But I know that a geometric pattern, to determine Sn, what does the formula look like again? Yes, bracket. But let's do the substitution. We already have a formula. So I'm not going to write down the formula again, just for time's sake. But we know it's A. But in this case, A is 1. So I don't have to write that 1. And then, what is my R? To the power of n minus 1 over R minus 1. Right, let's start with the denominator. So at the bottom I have half minus 1. So what is that answer? Half minus 1, negative half. So in the bottom I have negative half. So that means I have 63 over 32 equals to half to the power of n minus 1. Remember just the whole thing here. But then I have negative of half there. How do I get rid of the negative half? How do I multiply with negative half? But what I do on the left hand side, so I'm going to multiply with negative half on this side. It cancels out. That's simple. But what did I do on the left hand side? I need to repeat on the right hand side. So what is that answer going to be? Excellent, students. That answer is going to be negative 63 over 64 is equals to 1 over 2 to the power of n minus 1. What do I want to solve here? For n. N is in the exponent. But before we can solve the exponent, I need to make sure it's alone on the one side. Isn't that true? So I'm going to take the 1 to the other side. Can I do that? Yes. What do we call that again? Inverse. Inverse what? Inverse operations. So if I take the 1 to the other side, it's negative 1 on the one side. It becomes positive 1. So what is 63 over 64 plus 1? Let's do it without calculator because you are intelligent. Mathematics, grade 12 students. So that's going to be 63, negative 63 over 64 plus 1. No? But can I rewrite 1? Yes, I can rewrite as 64 over 64 is equals to 1 over 2 to the power of n. Are you still following? No, so that becomes, why did I write it as 64 over 64? Also equals to 1, but why did I choose 64? Why didn't I choose another number? We want to make the denominator the same, and the LCD in this case is 64. So negative 63 plus 64 is equals to 1 over 64. Our denominators remains the same. And now I can say that becomes 1 over 2 to the power of n. What am I supposed to do now? I cannot divide both sides. I cannot. Mr. Nell, I need your attention here. What can I do now? How are we going to grade 11 work, eh? I'm listening. Prime factorization. So if I prime factorize 64, excellent. 64 is equals to 2 to the power of 6. 2 to the power of 6 is equals to 1 to the power 1 over 2 to the power of n. Like that. So therefore that means that n is equals to 6. What was the question? Determine n. And n was how many terms are there actually? I need to add up the first 6 terms. So let's write that question for the examiner to see. Therefore, Mr. Examiner or Mrs. Examiner, or should we say it, or what is the pronouns that we use now? The sum of the first 6 terms starting at term number 1 will add up to 63 over 32. That is in essence how I answer a question like that for my examiner. Remember, the examiners they are people like me, just a little bit smarter than I am. Just a little bit, like I would say, just a little bit by 100 times. So they don't understand. So you need to make sure you paint the picture for them as clear as possible. That last one was a little bit tricky. If you struggled with this, re-watch the video over and over. And please make sure that you understand or grasp that concept with me.